Commander Zixathera stared at the dead control panel in front of her. The lights that should have been blinking were dark. The screens that should have shown star maps and engine readings were black. Only the emergency power kept a few small, red lights glowing in the darkness of the bridge. 3 days ago, everything had been normal. The Altarian research ship Quantum Echo had been flying through space on a simple mission. They were supposed to study plants and animals on distant worlds, nothing dangerous, nothing that should have gone wrong. But it did go wrong. Zixathera's long, thin fingers touched the communication device on her collar. "Engineering team, report," she said in her musical Altarian voice. The answer came back filled with static. "Commander, the engines are completely dead. We cannot fix them. The hyperdrive is broken beyond repair. We are stuck here." Stuck. The word hit Zixathera like a physical blow. They were floating in empty space, far from any star system, far from any trade routes, far from any help. She looked around the bridge at her crew. There were 12 Altarians on the Quantum Echo, all of them scientists and engineers, all of them smart people who had dedicated their lives to learning about the universe. None of them soldiers. None of them prepared for this. Dr. Kethali, the medical officer, looked up from her readings. "Commander, I have bad news. Our life support systems are failing. The air recyclers are working, but barely. We have maybe 6 more days before the air becomes too poisonous to breathe." 6 days. Zixathera did the math in her head. The nearest Altarian patrol ship was months away from their last known position. Even if someone noticed they were missing, which might take weeks, no one would know where to look for them. "What about the distress beacon?" asked Veltar, the communications officer. "Still working," Veltar replied. "But it is running on emergency power. It will die in 2 days, maybe 3, and there is nobody close enough to hear it anyway." Zixathera nodded slowly. She had hoped Veltar would have better news, but she had expected this answer. The Altarian Confederacy was vast, but space was much vaster. Ships could disappear out here and never be found. She thought back to how this had started. They had been investigating strange energy readings near a dead star system, old readings that did not match anything in their databases. As scientists, they could not resist taking a closer look. The energy readings had led them to what looked like an ancient space station. It was huge and clearly very old. Older than any Altarian technology. Maybe older than the Altarian species itself. "We should scan it," Dr. Kethali had suggested. "Think of what we might learn." Zixathera had agreed. It seemed safe enough. The station appeared to be dead. No power readings, no signs of life, just an ancient relic floating in space. But when they had started their scans, something had woken up. The station had come alive all at once. Lights had blazed along its surface. Weapons that should have been dead for thousands of years had turned toward their ship. And then those weapons had fired. The Quantum Echo had tried to run, but it was too late. Some kind of energy beam had hit their engines. Not enough to destroy the ship, but enough to cripple it completely. Their hyperdrive had shut down. Their main engines had died. Even their backup power systems had been damaged. They had drifted away from the ancient station, but they could not escape the star system, could not call for help, could not do anything but wait. "Commander," said Bixtel, one of the engineers, "we are getting reports from all departments. Food supplies will last maybe 8 days. Water recycling is working but using a lot of power. Heat is, well, it is going to get very cold in here soon." Zixathera looked at the faces of her crew. They were trying to stay calm, but she could see the fear in their large, dark eyes. Altarians were not built for this kind of crisis. Their species had evolved to be thinkers and researchers. They solved problems with their minds, not with violence or desperate action. "We need to make a plan," she said, trying to sound confident. "Let us think about this scientifically. What are our options?" "We could try to repair the engines," suggested Nixavara, the chief engineer. "With what parts?" Bixtel asked. "The damage is too severe. We would need components we do not have." "What about the escape pods?" Dr. Kethali asked. Veltar shook his head. The pods only have life support for a few hours, and there's nowhere to go. We are between star systems. They sat in silence for a long moment. Outside the viewports, stars glittered like tiny diamonds against the black of space. Beautiful and completely unreachable. We should send messages, Zixathara said finally. To our families, to the Confederacy. We should record what happened here. Maybe someday another ship will find our wreckage and learn from our mistakes. It was not much of a plan, but it was something. The crew nodded and began to disperse to their various tasks. Over the next 2 days, the situation grew worse. The temperature inside the ship dropped steadily as their power reserves drained away. The crew wore their heaviest clothes and huddled together for warmth. They ate less food to make their supplies last longer, but everyone knew it would not make much difference. Zixathara spent her time on the bridge, watching the stars and hoping for a miracle that would not come. Sometimes she activated the view screen to look at the ancient station they had found. It had gone dark again after attacking them, as if it had returned to its long sleep. She wondered what species had built it, what they had been trying to protect, whether they had ever imagined that their creation would still be killing innocent explorers thousands of years later. On the third day, Veltar approached her with a worried expression. "Commander, the distress beacon is getting weaker. It will stop working soon." "How long do we have?" "Maybe 6 hours. 8 at most." Zixathara nodded. She had known this moment would come. When the beacon died, their last connection to the outside, universe would be severed. They would be truly alone. "Keep monitoring it," she said. "And Veltar?" "Thank you. You have done excellent work under impossible circumstances." The communications officer's ears drooped with sadness, but he managed a small smile. "It has been an honor serving with you, Commander." As the hours passed, the beacon grew weaker and weaker. Veltar called out power readings that dropped steadily toward 0. The rest of the crew gathered on the bridge to watch. None of them spoke. There was nothing left to say. "Beacon power at 5%, Veltar reported. 3%. 1%. "Commander," Veltar said, his voice barely a whisper. "The beacon is—" He stopped. His large eyes went wide. He pressed his hands against his communication equipment and listened intently. "What is it?" Zixathara asked. "I am getting a response," Veltar said, his voice filled with disbelief. "Someone is answering our distress signal." The bridge erupted in excited chatter. Zixathara felt her heart racing. "Are you sure? Who is it?" Veltar worked frantically at his controls, trying to boost their failing receivers. "The signal is very strange, Commander. It is using primitive radio frequencies instead of quantum communication, but it is definitely artificial, and it is getting stronger." "Can you translate it?" "I am trying, but the language is completely unknown." Wait. I think I have something." The bridge fell silent except for the soft hum of equipment. Then, through the static and interference, they heard a voice. It was harsh and alien, speaking in short, clipped sounds that their translation computer struggled to process. "Unknown vessel. This is Captain Sarah Chen of the United Earth Navy ship Defiant Resolve. We have received your distress signal. What is your status? Do you require assistance?" The translation was rough and full of gaps, but the meaning was clear enough. Someone had heard them. Someone was asking if they needed help. Zixathara looked around at her crew. Their faces showed a mixture of hope and fear. This was an unknown species with an unknown ship. They could be pirates or slavers or worse. But they were also the only hope the Quantum Echo had. "Veltar, open a channel," she ordered. "Channel open, Commander." Zixathara took a deep breath. "Unknown ship. This is Commander Zixathara of the Altarian vessel Quantum Echo. Our engines are destroyed. Our life support is failing. We desperately need help." There was a long pause. Then the alien voice came back, clearer this time, as their computers worked on the translation. "Quantum Echo, we read you. We are changing course to your position. Estimated arrival time is 47 minutes. Hold tight. Help is coming." Veltar looked at his instruments and gasped. "Commander, they were not lying. I am detecting a massive energy signature approaching at incredible speed." Whatever kind of ship they have, it is much more powerful than anything in our databases. Through the viewports, a new star appeared in the distance. But this star was moving, growing brighter as it approached. As it got closer, they could see it was not a star at all, but a ship. A huge, dark ship that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. By the ancient ones, whispered Dr. Kethali. What kind of species builds ships like that? The approaching vessel was massive, easily 3 times the size of the Quantum Echo. Its hull was angular and scarred, covered with weapon systems that looked designed purely for destruction. It moved through space like a predator, graceful despite its size. They are hailing us again, Veltar reported. The alien captain's voice filled the bridge. Quantum Echo, this is Defiant Resolve. We are beginning docking procedures. Prepare to receive boarding parties. We are coming aboard to assist with repairs and medical aid. Zixthara felt a chill that had nothing to do with the cold air. Boarding parties. These aliens wanted to come aboard their ship. With their obvious military power, they could easily take over the Quantum Echo and enslave its crew. Or worse, but what choice did they have? Without help, they would all be dead within days anyway. Acknowledged, Defiant Resolve, she replied. We will prepare to receive your boarding parties. As the massive warship moved into docking position, Zixthara wondered if they were about to be rescued or conquered. Either way, their fate was now in the hands of these unknown aliens who called themselves humans. The last thing she saw before the docking tube connected was the name painted on the side of the human ship in bold, aggressive letters. Defiant Resolve. Whatever happened next, Zixthara thought, at least they would not die alone in the cold darkness of space. The universe was about to become a much more interesting place. The docking tube connected to the Quantum Echo with a loud metallic clang that echoed through the ship. Zixthara and her crew waited on the main deck, not knowing what to expect. They had arranged themselves in what they hoped looked like a peaceful formation, but Zixthara could see the fear in everyone's eyes. The airlock hissed open, and the first human stepped through. Zixthara had tried to imagine what these aliens might look like, but the reality was more shocking than her wildest guesses. The human was shorter than most Altarians, but much broader and more muscular. Altarian bodies were thin and delicate, built for thinking and careful work. This creature looked like it was designed for fighting. The human wore some kind of armored suit that was clearly military. Its face was hidden behind a protective helmet, but Zixthara could see eyes that looked around the room quickly and carefully, taking in every detail. This was a predator studying its environment. More humans came through the airlock. All of them were armed. All of them moved with the same careful, dangerous grace. Zixthara counted 6 of them before their leader stepped forward and removed her helmet. The human leader was female, with short dark hair and skin that was darker than any Altarian's pale complexion. Her face was hard and weathered, marked by what looked like old scars, but her eyes, while alert and watchful, did not seem cruel. "Commander Zixthara?" the human asked. Her voice was rough but not hostile. "Yes," Zixthara replied, her own voice barely a whisper. "I am Commander Zixthara." The human leader nodded once. "I am Captain Sarah Chen of the United Earth Navy. We received your distress signal and came as quickly as we could. What is your situation?" Zixthara looked around at her crew, then back at the humans. These aliens had weapons that could kill everyone on the ship in seconds. They had a warship that could destroy the Quantum Echo without effort. But they were asking about the situation, not demanding surrender. "Our engines are completely destroyed," Zixthara explained. "Our life support systems are failing. We have perhaps 4 days of air remaining, maybe less. Our food and water will last about a week." Captain Chen nodded and spoke into a device on her wrist in rapid human language. Zixthara's translation computer could only catch a few words: medical team, engineering, and emergency supplies. "We are going to help you," Captain Chen said, turning back to Zixthara. "My people are bringing equipment to fix your life support systems. Our medical officer will check on your crew's health, and our engineers will see what we can do about your engines." Zixthara stared at the human captain. You are going to help us? Just like that? You do not want anything in return? Captain. Chen tilted her head slightly as if the question confused her. You sent a distress signal. You need help. That is enough. Before Zixathara could respond, more humans came through the airlock. These ones carried large cases of equipment and supplies. They moved quickly but carefully, like people who knew exactly what they were doing. One of the humans, a smaller female, with red hair, approached Dr. Kethali with a device that was obviously some kind of medical scanner. She spoke in simple, slow words that the translation computer could handle better. I am Dr. Rodriguez. I need to check your health. Is this acceptable? Dr. Kethali looked at Zixathara, who nodded. The human doctor began running her scanner over the Altarian medical officer, studying the readings with professional interest. Meanwhile, other humans had spread throughout the ship. Zixathara could hear them working in the engineering sections, their voices calling out measurements and instructions. They seemed to know what they were doing, even though they had never seen Altarian technology before. Captain Chen, Zixathara said carefully, may I ask why you are doing this? Your ship is obviously powerful. You could simply take what you want from us. Why help instead? The human captain looked at her with an expression that Zixathara could not read. Because you asked for help, she said simply, and because it is the right thing to do. The right thing to do. The phrase was strange to Zixathara. In Altarian society, decisions were made based on careful analysis of costs and benefits. Treaties were negotiated. Agreements were made. Help was given in exchange for something of equal value. But these humans seemed to be operating on completely different principles. A loud crash came from the engineering section, followed by human voices shouting. Zixathara felt her heart sink. Had something gone wrong? But Captain Chen just smiled slightly. Do not worry. That is just Chief Petty Officer Martinez. He likes to take things apart to see how they work. Usually he can put them back together better than before. A few minutes later, a human voice called out over the ship's communication system. Captain Chen, this is Martinez. Good news and bad news. Bad news is that their hyperdrive is completely fried. Good news is that we can get their life support running at full capacity within 2 hours. Their sublight engines are damaged but repairable. We can have them flying again, just not jumping to hyperspace. Captain Chen pressed her wrist device. Understood, Martinez. What do you need? Some parts from our fabrication unit, and maybe 6 more hours of work. These Altarian systems are actually pretty elegant once you figure them out. Zixathara felt a wave of relief wash over her. They would live. Whatever happened next, her crew would not die in the cold darkness of space. Captain Chen, she said, I must ask again. What do you want in return for this help? Our ship has some scientific equipment that might be valuable. Our databases contain star charts and research data. We can offer. Captain Chen held up a hand to stop her. We do not want anything from you. We are happy to help. But there must be something. Some kind of trade. Some kind of agreement. The human captain shook her head. The only thing we want is for you to get home safely to your families. Zixathara felt her legs go weak. This was completely outside her understanding. No species helped others without expecting something in return. It went against the basic logic of survival and resource management. Dr. Rodriguez approached them, looking concerned. Captain, I need to speak with you privately. The 2 humans moved to a corner of the room and talked in low voices. Zixathara could see Dr. Rodriguez pointing at her medical scanner and shaking her head. Captain Chen's expression grew serious. They came back to the group, and Dr. Rodriguez addressed Dr. Kethali directly. Your people are suffering from oxygen deprivation and malnutrition. It is not critical yet, but it will be soon. We need to get some of our emergency air supplies connected to your life support system immediately. Dr. Kethali nodded weakly. Zixathara noticed for the first time that her medical officer's skin had a slightly blue tint that indicated low oxygen levels. How had she missed that? Martinez, Captain Chen called into her wrist device. Medical priority. We need emergency air supplies connected to their life support right now. On it, Captain. Give me 10 minutes. True to his word, 10 minutes later, the air on the ship began to smell fresher and cleaner. Zixthera took a deep breath and felt her mind clearing. She had not realized how bad the air had gotten. Dr. Cathali's color began to improve almost immediately. Dr. Rodriguez stayed close to her, monitoring her condition with obvious concern. "Thank you," Dr. Cathali whispered to the human doctor. "No need to thank me," Dr. Rodriguez replied. "This is what we do." Over the next several hours, the humans worked with incredible efficiency. They repaired systems that the Altarians had thought were beyond fixing. They shared their food and water supplies without being asked. They even provided warm clothing when they noticed that the Altarian crew was shivering in the cold ship. Zixthera watched all of this with growing amazement. These humans were clearly warriors. Their ship was built for combat, their equipment was military, and they moved with the discipline of soldiers. But they treated the Altarians with gentle care, like precious cargo that needed protection. Veltar approached her with a puzzled expression. "Commander, I have been monitoring human communications. They have been sending messages to other ships in their fleet." "What kind of messages?" Zixthera asked. "They are reporting our situation and requesting additional supplies. But here's the strange part. They are also asking for diplomatic specialists and xenobiologists to be sent to our location." "Why would they want diplomats?" "I think," Veltar said slowly, "they want to make sure they handle first contact with our species correctly. They are worried about making mistakes that might offend us or cause problems later." Zixthera stared at him. These humans had just discovered an entirely new intelligent species, and their first concern was making sure they did not accidentally cause offense. Captain Chen noticed their conversation and walked over. "Is there a problem?" "Captain," Zixthera said carefully, "my communications officer tells me you have contacted your fleet about us." "Yes," Captain Chen said. "We have reported the situation and requested additional assistance." "What kind of assistance?" "People who are smarter than me about first contact situations. Scientists who can help us understand your technology better so we can provide better repairs. Medical specialists in case your physiology is different. Enough to require special care, that sort of thing." Zixthera felt her worldview shifting. Everything she thought she knew about how intelligent species behaved was being challenged by these humans. "Captain Chen," she said, "in my experience, when two unknown species meet for the first time, the result is usually conflict. War, even. You have superior technology and firepower. You could easily conquer our ship and take us prisoner. Why do you not?" Captain Chen looked genuinely shocked by the question. "Why would we do that? You have done nothing to harm us. You are just people who needed help. But we are competitors for resources. Our species might conflict over territory or trade routes in the future." "That might happen," Captain Chen agreed. "But it has not happened yet. Right now you are just people who need help. And we help people who need help. That is what humans do." A loud beeping sound came from the ship's systems and Martinez's voice echoed through the corridors. "Captain, we have restored full life support. Air recycling is operating at 100% efficiency. Temperature controls are back online. They should be comfortable now." The change was immediate. Warmth began to flow through the ventilation system, and the air became crisp and clean. For the first time in days, Zixthera felt like she could breathe easily. "What about the engines?" Captain Chen asked. "Sublight engines will be operational in about 4 more hours. But Captain, that hyperdrive is completely destroyed. They are not going anywhere fast without it." Captain Chen turned to Zixthera. "How far is your nearest base or colony?" Zixthera did some quick calculations. "About 3 months at sublight speed. That is too far. Your supplies would not last that long, even with our help." Captain Chen was quiet for a moment, thinking. Then she pressed her wrist device again. "Martinez, what would it take to get their hyperdrive working?" "We would need to replace the entire hyperdrive core, Captain. We do not have those kinds of parts." Captain Chen nodded. "Understood." She looked at Zixthera. "We will escort you to the nearest human outpost. From there we can arrange transportation to get you back to Altarian space." "You would do that? Take us to your territory?" Unless you have a better idea. Zixthera looked around at her crew. They were all listening to the conversation, and she could see hope returning to their faces for the first time in days. "Captain Chen," she said, "I do not understand your species at all, but I am very grateful that we found you instead of someone else." Captain Chen smiled, and for the first time, Zixthera saw warmth in the human's eyes instead of just professional competence. "You did not find us, Commander," she said. "We found you, and that made all the difference." Outside the viewports, stars continued to glitter in the darkness, but now they no longer looked cold and hostile. They looked like stepping stones on a path that would lead the quantum echo home. The next few hours changed everything Zixthera thought she knew about the universe. She watched the humans work with her crew, and what she saw challenged every assumption her species had about how intelligent beings interacted. The humans did not just help, they taught. They shared their knowledge freely, showing Altarian engineers better ways to maintain their systems. Chief Petty Officer Martinez, a stocky human with graying hair and gentle hands, worked alongside Bixtel to repair the quantum echo's environmental systems. But instead of just fixing the problem, he explained each step in simple terms that the translation computer could handle. "Your people built this system very well," Martinez said, pointing to a complex array of pipes and filters. "Much more elegant than our designs. But see this connection here? It is a weak point. If you reinforce it like this." He showed Bixtel how to add a simple bracket that would prevent future failures. Bixtel watched everything with wide eyes. "Why are you teaching me this? This knowledge could be valuable to your people." Martinez looked confused. "Knowledge is only valuable if it helps people. If I teach you, then your people will be safer. That makes the universe a better place." Dr. Rodriguez worked with Dr. Kethali in the medical bay, comparing notes on Altarian and human physiology. The differences were significant. Altarians needed less oxygen but more specific nutrients. Their hearts beat slower but had more chambers. Their blood was blue instead of red. But the human doctor treated these discoveries with fascination instead of suspicion. "Remarkable," Dr. Rodriguez said, studying her scanner readings. "Your cardiovascular system is much more efficient than ours, and your brain chemistry. This is incredible. You must have much better memory retention than humans. Is that useful information for your military?" "Doctor?" Kethali asked nervously. Dr. Rodriguez looked shocked. "Military? No, this is medical knowledge. I am learning how to better treat your people if any of them ever get injured around humans. Why would the military want this?" Dr. Kethali did not have an answer for that. Captain Chen spent her time moving between work groups, checking on progress and making sure everyone had what they needed. But Zixthera noticed that the human captain also spent time just talking with the Altarian crew members, asking about their families, their work, their hopes for the future. "You have children?" Captain Chen asked Nixvara, the young engineer who had shown her pictures from his personal datapad. "2 younglings," Nixvara replied with obvious pride. "They are just beginning their education cycles." "What do they want?" "To be when they grow up. My eldest wants to be a starship designer. She draws pictures of new ship types all the time. My youngest thinks he wants to be a xenobiologist like Dr. Kethali." Captain Chen smiled. "Smart kids. I hope they get to see some of the wonderful things this universe has to offer." It was a simple conversation, but it struck Zixthera as significant. Captain Chen was not just seeing the Altarians as an alien species to be studied or managed. She was seeing them as individuals with families and dreams. After 6 hours of work, Martinez announced that the Quantum Echo's sublight engines were fully operational. The life support systems were running better than they had in years. The food and water recyclers had been upgraded with human improvements that would make them more efficient and reliable. "She is ready to fly," Martinez reported to Captain Chen. "Not fast and not far without more fuel, but she will get them where they need to go." Captain Chen nodded and turned to Zixthera. "Our nearest outpost is 2 weeks away at sublight speed. We can escort you there, and from there arrange transportation back to your territory." 2 weeks is a long time," Zixthera said. Will your ship not be needed elsewhere? Our patrol was scheduled to last 3 months. We can spare 2 weeks to make sure you get home safely. Zixthara looked at her crew. They had all gathered on the bridge to hear this discussion. She could see the relief and gratitude in their faces, but also the same confusion she felt. Captain Chen, she said carefully, I must ask this directly. What does humanity gain from helping us? What is your species' motivation for this assistance? Captain Chen was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was thoughtful. Commander, let me ask you a different question. If you found a ship full of injured strangers, what would your people do? Zixthara considered this. We would assess the situation carefully. Consider the costs and benefits of assistance, negotiate terms for aid, establish communication protocols, form a committee to study the implications. And how long would that take? Several days, at minimum, possibly weeks, depending on the complexity of the situation. Captain Chen nodded. And during those several days, what would happen to the injured strangers? The question hit Zixthara like a physical blow. She realized the implication immediately. They would suffer, possibly die. Exactly, Captain Chen said simply. Humans believe that when someone needs immediate help, you provide immediate help. You figure out the complicated political and economic questions later, after everyone is safe. But what if helping strangers puts your own people at risk? Then, you take reasonable precautions, like we did when we first boarded your ship with armed security teams, but you still help. Veltar, who had been listening quietly, spoke up. Captain Chen, our databases contain information about many species throughout the galaxy. Most of them follow what we call the standard model of first contact. Cautious approach, limited information exchange, lengthy negotiation periods, gradual trust building. You humans seem to follow a completely different model. Captain Chen smiled. What model is that? Help first, ask questions later. That sounds about right, Captain Chen agreed. Dr. Keithali stepped forward. Captain, may I ask about human history? Have your people always operated this way? Not always, Captain Chen admitted. Humans have fought wars, made mistakes, done terrible things to each other and to our environment. But we learned from those mistakes. We decided that the universe has enough cruelty in it already. We do not need to add more. How did you learn this? Zixthara asked. Captain Chen was quiet for a moment, and Zixthara could see old pain in the human's eyes. My grandmother used to tell me stories about the old days, before humans learned to work together. Wars that killed millions. Disasters that could have been prevented if people had just helped each other instead of fighting over resources. She always ended those stories the same way. Sarah, the universe is vast and dangerous. The only way any of us survive is if we take care of each other. And your entire species believes this? Not all of us, Captain Chen said honestly. Humans are not perfect. We still have people who are selfish or cruel. But most of us try to live by a simple rule. Treat others the way you would want to be treated if you were in their situation. Bixtel asked, what if the others do not deserve help? What if they are criminals or enemies? Everyone deserves basic medical care and safety, Captain Chen replied. After that, there can be discussions about justice and consequences, but first you keep people alive. The conversation was interrupted by an alert from the Defiant Resolve's bridge. Captain Chen pressed her wrist device. Captain, this is Lieutenant Commander Park. We are detecting multiple contacts approaching at high speed. Very high speed. Captain Chen's expression immediately became serious. How many? 5 contacts. Unknown configuration. Estimated arrival time, 37 minutes. Zixthara felt her blood turn to ice. Captain Chen, this sector is supposed to be empty. There should not be any ships here. Captain Chen was already moving toward the airlock. We need to get back to our ship immediately. Commander Zixthara, I want you and your crew to prepare for emergency maneuvers. What kind of ships could they be? Dr. Keithali asked. Veltar was working frantically at his communication console. Commander, I am getting energy readings on long-range sensors. These signatures, they match krill hunting ships. The name sent a wave of terror through every Altarian on the bridge. The Krill were legends, nightmare stories told to frighten children, ancient predators that swept through civilized space every few generations, harvesting technology and enslaving entire populations. "Are you certain?" Zixthara asked, though she could see the answer in Veltar's terrified expression. "The energy signatures are unmistakable. 5 Krill bioships, each one capable of destroying a dozen ships like ours." Captain Chen had stopped at the airlock. She looked back at the Altarians, and Zixthara could see the human making a decision. "Defiant resolve, this is the captain. Prepare for combat operations, all hands to battle stations." "Captain," Zixthara said urgently, "you do not understand. The Krill are not just another hostile species. They are living nightmares. Their ships are grown, not built. They have weapons that can tear holes in space itself. No single ship has ever survived an encounter with a Krill hunting pack." "Captain," Chen nodded calmly. "Then I guess we will be the first." "You should run," Zixthara insisted. "Your ship is fast. You can escape before they arrive. There is no shame in retreating from the Krill. And leave you here defenseless? We are already doomed. There is no point in both ships being destroyed." Captain Chen looked at her with an expression that Zixthara would remember for the rest of her life. It was not anger or fear or resignation. It was something much simpler and much more powerful. "Commander," Captain Chen said quietly, "we do not abandon people who need help. That is not who we are." She pressed her wrist device. "All human personnel, return to the Defiant Resolve immediately. We have incoming hostiles." As the human crew gathered their equipment and prepared to leave, Martinez approached Bixtel one last time. "If we do not survive this," he said simply, "remember what I taught you about the environmental systems. Take care of your people." Dr. Rodriguez pressed a small device into Dr. Kethali's hands. "This is a medical scanner calibrated for Altarian physiology. Use it to monitor your crew's health." One by one, the humans said their goodbyes, as if they were saying farewell to old friends instead of aliens they had met only hours before. Captain Chen was the last to leave. She stood at the airlock and looked at Zixthara. "Captain?" Zixthara said desperately, "Please reconsider. You do not owe us anything. You have already done more than anyone could expect." "Commander," Captain Chen replied, "you sent out a distress call. We answered. That means something to us. It means we take responsibility for your safety. But your crew?" "My crew volunteered for military service knowing that sometimes we would have to risk our lives to protect others. This is what we signed up for." The airlock sealed, and the docking tube disconnected. Through the viewports, Zixthara watched the massive human warship move into a defensive position between the quantum echo and the approaching threat. On her communication system, Captain Chen's voice was calm and professional. "Quantum Echo, this is Defiant Resolve. We are moving to intercept the hostiles. Stay behind us and be prepared to run if we give the order." "Defiant Resolve," Zixthara replied, her voice breaking. "Thank you. Just doing our job, Commander. See you on the other side." Zixthara looked around at her crew. They were all staring at the human ship, watching as it prepared to face impossible odds to protect strangers. "Commander," Veltar whispered, "what kind of species does this? What kind of people risk everything for aliens they just met?" Zixthara watched the Defiant Resolve charge its weapons and orient toward the approaching Krill fleet. She thought about Captain Chen's words, about Martinez teaching Bixtel, about Dr. Rodriguez caring for Dr. Kethali, about a human grandmother, teaching her granddaughter that the only way to survive was to take care of each other. "The kind of species," she said softly, "that the universe has been waiting for." In the distance, 5 dark shapes appeared against the stars, growing larger as they approached. The Krill had arrived, and the most important battle in galactic history was about to begin. The Krill ships emerged from hyperspace like nightmares given form. Zixthara had seen pictures of Krill vessels in historical databases, but seeing them with her own eyes was far more terrifying. These were not ships in any conventional sense. They were living creatures, bred and grown for war, each one the size of a small moon. Their hulls were black and organic, pulsing with veins of dark energy. Weapon pods grew from their surfaces like tumors, and their fronts were shaped like massive jaws lined with teeth made of crystallized metal. They moved through space with the fluid grace of sea creatures, completely silent, utterly alien. "By the Ancient Ones," whispered Dr. Kethali. "They are even worse than the stories say." The lead krill bioship was larger than the others, its hull covered in scars from 1,000 battles. Bony protrusions jutted from its surface, and its weapon, a rays glowed with malevolent energy. This was a creature that had devoured entire fleets. The Defiant Resolve looked tiny in comparison, a metal dart facing down 5 living mountains. But the human ship did not retreat. Instead, it accelerated toward the krill formation, its own, weapons charging for battle. "Quantum Echo," Captain Chen's voice came over the communication system. "Stay back and monitor the situation. If we fail, run. Do not try to help us. Get your people to safety." Zixathera pressed the communication button with shaking hands. "Defiant Resolve, you are outnumbered 5-1. Each of those ships is larger than a dozen of yours. Please reconsider." "Understood, Quantum Echo. We have engaged the enemy before. We know what we are doing." But as Zixathera watched, she wondered if any species could know what they were doing when facing the krill. These creatures had been the terror of space for millennia. They had destroyed civilizations that were older and more advanced than humanity could possibly be. The first attack came without warning. The largest krill bioship opened its massive jaws and spat out a stream of living darkness. The weapon, if it could be called a weapon, tore through space like liquid shadow, reaching out to engulf the human ship. But the Defiant Resolve was no longer where the attack had been aimed. The human ship had jinked sideways at the last instant, moving with an agility that should have been impossible for something so large. Captain Chen's response was immediate and violent. The Defiant Resolve fired everything it had. Energy beams, missile salvos, projectile weapons that Zixathera had never seen before, all of it focused on the lead krill ship. The barrage was so intense that space itself seemed to burn. Most species would have tried to avoid the krill, to fight at long range where their superior technology might give them an advantage. But the humans did the opposite. They flew straight into the enemy formation using their speed and maneuverability to stay ahead of the bioship's attacks. "Impossible," breathed Veltar. "They are fighting the krill at close range." "No one fights. The krill at close range." The human ship spun and twisted through space, its weapons never stopping. Every time a krill bioship tried to bring its main weapons to bear, the Defiant Resolve was somewhere else, striking at weak points and vulnerable spots. But the krill were learning. The smaller bioships began to coordinate their attacks, forcing the human ship into a smaller and smaller area of maneuverable space. Dark energy weapons reached out from multiple directions, and several times Zixathera was certain the Defiant Resolve had been destroyed. Each time, the human ship somehow survived. Its hull glowed with heat from near misses. Armor plating was stripped away by glancing blows, but it kept fighting. "Defiant Resolve," Zixathera called desperately. "Your ship is taking damage. You should disengage." "Negative, Quantum Echo. We are doing fine." But they were not doing fine. Zixathera could see atmosphere venting from several breaches in the human ship's hull. Its weapon fire was becoming less coordinated, suggesting that some of its systems had been damaged. The krill sensed weakness and pressed their attack. All 5 bioships converged on the Defiant Resolve, their living weapons reaching out like grasping tentacles. For a moment, the human ship disappeared completely in a ball of dark energy. When the energy cleared, the Defiant Resolve was still there, but barely. Half of its weapon systems were offline. Its engines were sputtering. Emergency. Lights flickered along its damaged hull. The largest krill bioship moved in for the kill, its massive jaws opening to devour the crippled human vessel. That was when Captain Chen did something that no military strategist in the galaxy would have recommended. Instead of trying to escape, She ordered her ship to ram the Krill bioship, head on. The defiant resolve accelerated directly toward the creature's open mouth, firing everything it had remaining. The bioship tried to close its jaws and turn away, but it was too late. The human ship struck the Krill creature at the base of its throat, punching through organic armor and penetrating deep into its body. The bioship's scream was transmitted. Through subspace, a sound of pain and rage that made every Altarian on the Quantum Echo clutch their ears. But the ram attack had cost the humans dearly. The defiant resolve was embedded in the dying Krill bioship. Its front section crushed, its engines dead. Emergency pods began launching from various parts of the ship as the human crew abandoned their vessel. The remaining 4 Krill bioships circled like predators, preparing to destroy both the embedded human ship and the escape pods. Sixthera made a decision that surprised even herself. "All power to engines," she ordered. "Take us toward the battle." "Commander?" Bixtel stared at her in shock. "We have no weapons. Our ship is not built for combat." "We are not going to fight," Sixthera said. "We are going to rescue the human survivors. The Krill will destroy us the moment we enter the battle area." "Maybe," Sixthera agreed, "but Captain Chen risked her ship and crew to save us. We cannot do less for them." The Quantum Echo moved toward the battle at its maximum speed, which was painfully slow compared to the military vessels. As they approached, Sixthera could see the human escape pods scattered across space, defenseless against the approaching Krill. "Quantum Echo, this is Captain Chen." The human's voice came over the radio transmitted from one of the escape pods. "What are you doing? I ordered you to run." "We are coming to pick up your people," Sixthera replied. "Absolutely not. The Krill will kill you all." "Get out of here." "Captain Chen," Sixthera said firmly, "you told me that humans do not abandon people who need help. Well, neither do Altarians, not anymore." One of the smaller Krill bioships had noticed the approaching Quantum Echo and was turning toward them, its weapon pods glowing with malevolent energy. "Incoming Krill ship," Veltar reported, his voice tight with fear. "It will be in weapons range in 60 seconds. "How long to reach the first escape pod?" Sixthera asked. 90 seconds. They were not going to make it. That was when something unexpected happened. The defiant resolve, still embedded in the dead Krill bioship, suddenly exploded. But it was not the explosion of a ship being destroyed. It was a controlled detonation deliberately triggered. The human ship had turned itself into a massive bomb, and the explosion tore through 2 more of the Krill bioships. In the confusion that followed, with Krill creatures screaming in pain and the surviving bioships trying to reorganize, the Quantum Echo reached the first cluster of escape pods. "Emergency docking procedures," Sixthera ordered. "Get those humans aboard as quickly as possible." The Altarian crew worked with desperate efficiency, pulling human survivors aboard through emergency airlocks. Many of the humans were injured, and Dr. Kethali did her best to provide medical care with the equipment Dr. Rodriguez had given her. "Quantum Echo, this is Lieutenant Commander Park," came a voice from one of the pods. "I am the senior surviving officer. Captain Chen's pod was damaged in the explosion. We need to reach her immediately." "Where is she?" Sixthera asked. "Bearing 27 Mark IV, about 3 kilometers from your position." Sixthera looked at her sensors. Captain Chen's escape pod was drifting directly toward one of the surviving Krill bioships. "We see her," Sixthera said. "We are moving to intercept." The Quantum Echo changed course, racing toward the damaged escape pod. Behind them, the 2 surviving Krill bioships were recovering from the explosion and beginning to pursue. "Commander," Veltar said urgently, "the Krill ships are gaining on us. Our engines cannot outrun them." Sixthera looked at the tactical display. The math was simple and terrible. They could reach Captain Chen's pod, but they would not have time to dock and rescue her before the Krill caught up. Unless... "Bixtel," she called to her engineer. "Can you transfer all power from life support and artificial gravity to the engines?" "Yes, but we would only have about 10 minutes of air and we would be floating around the ship without gravity." "Do it." The lights dimmed as power was redirected. The artificial gravity shut off and everyone began floating, but the Quantum Echo accelerated, closing the distance to Captain Chen's pod. They reached her just as the first Krill bioship came into weapons range. Emergency pickup, Zixthara ordered. 30 seconds maximum. Dr. Kethali and 2 other Altarians flew through the ship's corridors in zero gravity, reaching the airlock where Captain Chen's damaged pod had just docked. The airlock cycled open, and Captain Chen floated inside. She was conscious but clearly injured, her human blood bright red against her pale skin. "You came back for me," she said weakly. "Of course we did," Dr. Kethali replied, helping the human captain toward the bridge. "That is what friends do." Behind them, dark energy weapons reached out from the pursuing Krill bioships, barely missing the Quantum Echo's engines. "All humans recovered," Lieutenant Commander Park reported. 17 survivors total. "Power restored to engines," Bixtel called out. "But we are still not fast enough to escape." Zixthara looked at the tactical display one more time. The 2 surviving Krill bioships were closing in, their weapons charging for a final attack. They had saved the humans, but now they were all going to die together. Then Captain Chen, bleeding and barely conscious, spoke from where Dr. Kethali was, treating her injuries. "Quantum Echo," she said weakly, "set course for the ancient station, the one that damaged your ship originally." "What?" Zixthara stared at her. "Captain, that station is what got us into this mess in the first place." "Trust me," Captain Chen whispered. "Sometimes the thing that hurts you once can save you later." Zixthara looked at the approaching Krill ships, then at the ancient station that still floated in the distance, dark and silent. She made her choice. "Set course for the ancient station," she ordered. "Maximum speed." As the Quantum Echo raced toward the mysterious structure with the Krill in pursuit, Zixthara wondered if they were flying toward salvation or simply choosing the manner of their death. Either way, they would face it together, human and Altarian, united by something stronger than species or technology. They had found something worth dying for, each other. The ancient station grew larger in the viewports as the Quantum Echo raced toward it at maximum speed. Behind them, the 2 surviving Krill bioships followed like living shadows, their weapons charging for a final killing blow. "Captain Chen," Zixthara called to the injured human officer who was being treated by Dr. Kethali. "What exactly are we hoping to find at that station?" Captain Chen struggled to sit up, her face pale from blood loss. "When your ship first approached the station, it came alive and attacked you, right?" "Yes, but it was defending something. Stations like that are usually automated guardians. If we can get close enough to trigger its defenses again, it will attack us too," Zixthara pointed out. "We barely survived the first time." "Maybe," Captain Chen agreed. "But the Krill are right behind us. At least this way we have a chance." Lieutenant Commander Park, the senior surviving human officer, floated over to join the conversation. "Captain, with respect, that station crippled the Quantum Echo with a single shot. If it fires on us again, then we die trying something instead of just running until we get caught," Captain Chen replied. "Sometimes that is the best you can do." Through the ship's communication system, Veltar's voice called out urgently. "Commander, the Krill are gaining on us. They will be in weapons range in 2 minutes." "How long until we reach the station?" Zixthara asked. 3 minutes, maybe 4. They were not going to make it. Zixthara looked around the bridge at the mixed crew of humans and Altarians working together. A few hours ago, these species had never met. Now they were united in a desperate attempt to survive. "All stop," she ordered suddenly. "Commander?" Bixtel stared at her in shock. "If we stop, the Krill will catch us." "Exactly." Zixthara turned to face the group. "We cannot outrun them and we cannot fight them. But maybe we can outsmart them." Captain Chen's eyes lit up with understanding. "You want to let them catch us? I want them to think they have caught us. Veltar, can you make our engines look like they have failed? Make it seem like we are drifting helplessly?" Veltar's fingers danced over his controls. "I can shut down the main engines and vent some plasma to make it look like we have been damaged. But Commander, if this does not work, If this does not work, we were dead anyway, Zixathera said simply. The quantum. Echo suddenly went dark and began to drift. From the outside, it would look like their engines had finally failed, leaving them defenseless in space. The krill took the bait. Both bioships slowed their approach, circling the apparently helpless vessel like predators savoring their victory. Through the viewport, Zixathera could see their organic hulls pulsing with anticipation. They are moving into capture position, Lieutenant Commander Park observed. They want to take us alive. That is what I was hoping for, Zixathera said. Veltar, how close are we to the ancient station? 2 kilometers in closing. We are drifting toward it on residual momentum. The larger of the 2 krill bioships moved closer to the quantum echo, extending what looked like metallic tentacles. To grab hold of the smaller ship, the creature's massive jaws opened slightly, revealing rows of crystalline teeth designed to tear through metal hulls. 1 kilometer to the station, Veltar reported. Whatever we are going to do, we need to do it soon. That was when the ancient station came alive. Just as it had when the quantum echo first approached, lights blazed along the massive structure's surface. Weapon systems that had been dormant for millennia rotated toward the new arrivals. And this time, there were multiple targets to choose from. The station's artificial intelligence, or whatever passed for intelligence in something so old, made its choice quickly. The krill bioships were clearly the greater threat, armed and aggressive, while the quantum echo was apparently helpless. The station fired. The beam that lanced out from the ancient structure was not the relatively gentle warning shot that had disabled the quantum echo days earlier. This was the full power of a defensive system built by a species that had faced the krill before and learned to fear them. The energy beam struck the larger krill bioship amidships, and the creature's scream echoed through subspace as its organic hull was torn open. The bioship tried to retreat, but the station's weapons tracked its movement, firing again and again until the living vessel was nothing but expanding gases and twisted metal. The second krill bioship tried to flee, but the ancient station's targeting systems were implacable. Another beam reached out across space, striking the creature in its propulsion organs. Crippled, the bioship spun helplessly as the station's weapons finished it off. In the space of 30 seconds, the ancient guardian had destroyed 2 of the most feared predators in the galaxy. By the ancient ones, Dr. Kethali whispered. What species built something that powerful? Captain Chen smiled weakly. A species that understood the same thing humans learned. Sometimes you have to fight the monsters, no matter how big they are. The ancient station's weapons powered down, and its lights dimmed back to their dormant state. But before it returned to complete silence, something unexpected happened. Veltar's communication console lit up with an incoming signal. Commander, he said in amazement, the station is trying to communicate with us. Can you translate it? It is using very old protocols, but I think, yes, I can make out some words. The voice that came through the speakers was mechanical and ancient, speaking in a language that predated most known civilizations. But the translation computer was able to extract meaning from it. Greetings, travelers. The krill threat has been eliminated. Are you in need of assistance? Zixathera stared at the communication panel. It is asking if we need help. Just like we did, Captain Chen observed. Maybe that is what this station was built for. Not to attack travelers, but to protect them from things like the krill. Lieutenant Commander Park was studying the sensor readings. If that is true, then why did it attack the quantum echo originally? Because we were scanning it with active sensors, Zixathera realized. It probably interpreted that as hostile action. But ships that are just passing through, or ships that are clearly in distress, it protects them, Captain Chen finished. Veltar looked up from his console. Commander, the station is transmitting again. The ancient voice filled the bridge, once more. Unknown vessels, your ships show signs of damage. This station can provide basic repairs and supplies. Do you wish to accept assistance? Zixathera looked around at her mixed crew of humans and Altarians. They had all been through so much together. They had saved each other's lives, learned from each other, fought side by side against impossible odds. "Veltar, open a channel," she ordered. "Channel open, Commander." "Ancient Station, this is Commander Zixthara of the Altarian vessel Quantum Echo. We accept your offer of assistance. And thank you for saving us from the Krill. It is the purpose for which this station was built," the mechanical voice replied. "To protect travelers from the darkness between stars. Please proceed to Docking Bay 7. Repairs will begin immediately." As the Quantum Echo moved toward the massive station, Captain Chen struggled to her feet despite Dr. Kathali's protests. "Captain, you should rest," the Altarian doctor said. "Your injuries are serious." "I will rest soon," Captain Chen promised. "But first I need to send a message to Earth Command." She moved to the communication console and began composing a report. Zixthara watched her work, curious about what the human would say about their first contact with an alien species. "What will you tell your people about us?" she asked. Captain Chen looked up from her work. "The truth, that we met a species of scientists and explorers who risked their lives to save strangers. That when the worst predators in the galaxy threatened us, you did not run away. You came back for us. We learned that from you," Zixthara said. "You showed us what it means to help others without expecting anything in return. And you showed us that such lessons can spread from one species to another," Captain Chen replied. "That maybe, if we are lucky, they can spread throughout the entire galaxy." Lieutenant Commander Park was working at the sensor station. "Captain, I am detecting multiple ships approaching, human vessels from the direction of our patrol route." "Reinforcements?" "Yes, ma'am, looks like a full squadron. They must have received our distress signal." Through the viewports, new stars appeared in the distance. But unlike the dark, threatening shapes of the Krill bioships, these lights were warm and welcoming. They were coming to help. "More ships coming from the other direction, too," Veltar reported. "Those are Altarian vessels. A rescue fleet." Zixthara smiled. "It seems both our species care about their people." "Good," Captain Chen said. "That will make the negotiations much easier." "Negotiations?" Captain Chen's smile was warm despite her exhaustion. "Commander, after what we have been through together, do you really think our species are going to remain strangers? We have work to do, treaties to write, technologies to share, stories to tell." She turned back to her communication console. "And I know exactly how I am going to end my report." "How?" Zixthara asked. Captain Chen's fingers moved over the controls as she added the final lines to her message to Earth Command. "When asked why the humans risked everything for strangers," she wrote, "the answer was simple. Because they called for help. And when someone calls for help, you answer. Every time. Without hesitation, without question, without fail." She paused, then added one more line. "Today we learned that we are not alone in believing this. The universe is full of species waiting to help each other. They just needed someone to show them how." 3 months later, the first joint human-Altarian research station was established at the site of the Ancient Guardian. The station served as a symbol of cooperation between the two species, but more importantly, it served as a beacon. Other species, hearing the story of the battle against the Krill, came to investigate. They found not conquerors or competitors, but partners willing to share knowledge and resources freely. The Rigelian Trade Consortium arrived first, followed by the Centauri Science Collective, then the Vegan Agricultural Union. Each species came expecting the usual negotiations and careful exchanges of the standard model. Instead, they found something unprecedented, a growing alliance based not on mutual benefit or shared threat, but on a simple principle learned from humanity. Help first. Ask questions later. Within a year, 17 species had joined what became known as the Galactic Cooperation Initiative. Within 5 years, that number had grown to 43. The memorial station built at the battle site bore a simple inscription in dozens of EA languages. They answered the call. But the real memorial was not carved in stone or metal. It was written in the actions of every ship that stopped to help a vessel in distress, every species that shared their knowledge freely, every being that chose cooperation over competition. The krill, those ancient predators that had terrorized the galaxy for millennia, found that their hunting had become much more difficult. Ships no longer traveled alone through the dark spaces between stars. When one ship sent out a distress call, others answered. Always. The krill adapted by avoiding the main trade routes and concentrating on isolated systems. But even there, they found that their prey had changed. Species that had once fled in terror now fought back, using tactics and technologies shared freely among the Alliance. Some krill packs were destroyed. Others simply disappeared into the deep dark of intergalactic space, seeking easier prey among species that had not yet learned the value of cooperation. And in the archives of every member species, the story was recorded for future generations. The story of first contact between humans and Altarians. The story of Captain Sarah Chen and Commander Zix Thara. The story of how two species learned that the universe was not a battlefield but a community. The story of how someone called for help and someone else answered without hesitation. It was a simple story, really. But simple stories told often enough can change the universe. The stars no longer seemed cold and distant. They were stepping stones on a path that connected every species, every world, every being who believed in something greater than themselves. They had learned the most important lesson in the cosmos. When someone calls for help, you answer, every time, without hesitation. Because that is what defines us all.